Let's talk about something that's happening all around us, often completely unseen: human trafficking. Now, this isn't some far off problem you only see in the movies. It's a massive, and I mean massive, invisible crime that's happening right now in our own towns and cities. It's a shadow crisis, hidden in plain sight. So today, we're going to drag this crisis out of the shadows and into the light. This quote right here, it gets to the very heart of the problem. It's from a physician, Dr. Kanani Tichin, who had this shocking realization that she had a trafficking victim right there in her own operating room and completely missed the signs. Why? Because we can't see what we haven't been taught to look for. So to fight this, we first have to learn how to recognize it. And that's the big question, isn't it? How do we actually learn to see what's right in front of us? Well, that's what this whole explainer is about. We're going to break down what trafficking really is, who's most at risk, how traffickers work, and most importantly, the red flags that can help all of us learn to see. So first, let's try to get our heads around the sheer scale of this. The numbers are pretty staggering, but you know what's even more shocking? Is how much we don't know. Because this is a crime that absolutely thrives in the darkness. Okay, so here's the official definition from the Department of Labor. But let's be honest, the term human trafficking can sound almost clinical, like it's just about moving people around. But make no mistake, what we're really talking about here is modern-day slavery. It's about exploitation, plain and simple. And it generally breaks down into two main types. You've got sex trafficking, which is usually what grabs the headlines, forcing someone into commercial sex. But then there's labor trafficking, which is just as devastating. This is forcing someone to work against their will, maybe in a restaurant, on a farm, or as a domestic worker. And both are happening right here in the US. So how many people are we talking about in the US every year? Well, some estimates put the number around 15,000. But others, like from the Department of Health and Human Services, suggest it could be as high as 325,000. Just think about that gap for a second. That's a massive, terrifying range. It's a chilling reminder of just how good this crime is at staying hidden. So who are the traffickers targeting? The answer is both simple and absolutely brutal. They prey on vulnerability. So let's take a look at who is most at risk. You see, traffickers are predators. They're looking for cracks in someone's life that they can wedge themselves into. This could be runaway kids, people struggling to make ends meet, or migrants who might be isolated by language or their legal status. They find an existing hardship and exploit it, offering fake promises to get what they want. Let this one sink in for a minute. Within just 48 hours, 2 days of leaving home, 1 out of every 3 runaway kids is approached by a trafficker. It just shows you the terrifying speed and precision these predators operate with. That window of opportunity for them is horrifyingly small. Okay, so we've got a sense of the scale, and we know who is most vulnerable. Now let's get into the how. How do traffickers actually trap and control people? Well, it really comes down to a playbook, and it's built on 3 pillars of control. These are the tools of their trade. Force? Well, that's pretty straightforward. Physical violence. Fraud is all about the lies, a fake job offer, a promise of a loving relationship that's really just a trap. And then there's coercion. This is the psychological warfare, threatening the victim's family, threatening to have them deported, or creating a massive debt that can never be paid off. And this is a really crucial point. We need to ditch this idea that traffickers are always some shadowy figure in a van. The hard truth is they're often people the victim knows and trusts. It could be a family member, a boyfriend, an employer. They use that trust as a weapon to gain control. Which brings us right back to our main question. Now that we understand the dynamics, what are the actual, tangible signs we should be looking for? This is how we learn to see. So the first set of red flags is all about control and isolation. You might notice that someone isn't allowed to hold their own passport or ID, or maybe someone else is always speaking for them, never letting them answer a question directly. If their answers sound rehearsed or coached, that's a huge warning sign that someone else is pulling the strings. Next, take a look at their environment. Are they living where they work, especially if the conditions are unsafe or really cramped? Are they working insane hours for almost no money? You might hear them talk about a huge debt they owe their boss. That's a classic trap called debt bondage, where they're told they have to work to pay off a debt that just keeps growing. And finally, there are the physical and behavioral clues. Obvious signs of physical abuse are a huge red flag, of course. But also look for more subtle things. Do they seem malnourished or just generally unwell? Do they avoid eye contact? Or maybe you notice they've waited way too long to get medical help for an injury. These are the exact kinds of signs that Dr. Titchen realized she had missed in her own hospital. So, learning to see is step one. But what happens next? Well, the good news is the fight for justice is growing. There's a real systemic response aimed at taking down perpetrators and, just as importantly, restoring hope for survivors. And you can actually see that progress in the numbers. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, federal prosecutions for human trafficking jumped by 73% in just a single decade. That shows a serious escalation in law enforcement's focus on taking down these criminal rings. A huge part of this fight is having the right legal framework. Laws like the Victims of Trafficking and Violence Protection Act are game changers. They not only make it easier to prosecute traffickers, they also provide absolutely crucial support for survivors, making sure they're treated like victims, not criminals. And this right here is the single most important takeaway. If you recognize any of these signs, if your gut is just screaming that something is wrong, there is a safe, confidential way to act. That's the National Human Trafficking Hotline, and it's available 24/7. That one phone call could literally be the first step to freedom for somebody. So I want to leave you with this question. You now have a new lens to see the world through. Your mind knows what to look for, so your eyes can finally see it. What will you notice tomorrow that you would have missed today? Maybe it's a person's fear, a scripted answer, a situation that just doesn't add up. Learning to see the power that we all have now. The only question left is, how will we use it?